to log in, check us out, and kind of get situated. Sometimes last week I got started like right away, and there was just like people piled in.
Yeah.
But hey guys, I'm Kelvin Gary. I'm the head coach and owner of Body Space Fitness. We're doing basically a Friday coaches corner, and one of the things that I like to jokingly say is I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And one of the things that I like to do is, when I don't know everything, surround myself with people who know more than I do about topics that I don't know about. Hence, we have with us today Sammi. Let me make sure I say this right. Sammi Brondo.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, yeah. And guys, Sammi is an expert in the field of nutrition, right? She has her master's degree. We both have master's degrees from NYU, so a fellow
That's
NYU.
right.
And she's been working with several people that we know who rave about you. And just chatting the other day, we have like similar philosophies and like how to attack the issue of like, how do I eat, right? So basically what I want to do is, you sent me like all of your information and kind of like your bio, but I just want to give you an opportunity to like introduce yourself to everyone, and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do. And yeah, let's just
Yeah, for sure. So, like Calvin said, I am a registered dietitian in New York City. My office isn't too far from Body Space, and I have a private practice where I meet with clients, really just kind of teaching like ways to make healthy eating easy and ways to do it in a sustainable way so that you can eat everything, enjoy the foods you love, and really realistic eating that you can do for life. I also have an online membership program called All Foods Fit that kind of like teaches my general philosophy. This is my Instagram, Veggies and Chocolate. I share a lot of like recipes, fun tips on there. And I have a cookbook that came out almost 2 years ago
nice.
called The Essential Vegetable Cookbook. And it's just like a basically veggie focused cookbook focused on easy ways to incorporate more veggies into your meals.
So now the obvious question is, are there chocolate recipes in there?
You know what? There are not, and
Yeah.
everyone says, and I agree, the chocolate cookbook has to come
So
next.
yeah, exactly. Summer 2020, the chocolate cookbook.
Yeah, I'm in. I like that idea.
Cool, 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 cool. So I think we got a nice little group. So what we'll do is we'll hop right in. We did get a few really good questions that I want to kind of jump in on, because they're questions that I hear a lot. But the first one has to do with regards to the losing weight goal, right? Is a caloric, or the person asks, I always hear that eat a caloric deficit to lose weight. How do I know what my deficit should be? Right. So what's your thought on that, your philosophy around caloric deficits and how someone should gauge that maybe?
Yeah, so I looked at some of the questions in advance too, and that was kind of like the only one that I struggled with a little, only because it's so individual. I mean, in general, like when I see clients one on one and we're talking about weight loss, I will kind of input all of their information into an equation. I like to use something, it's called the Mifflin-St. Jean equation, and it's basically like the gold standard in nutrition for how you calculate someone's resting metabolic rate, meaning
Yeah.
how many calories they burn at rest, and then how many they're burning on top of that with their activity level. So it kind of looks at their age, their height, their sex, their weight, and how active they are.
Mm-hmm.
Gives a general number, and then from there we subtract maybe like 250 to 500. So I can't give a number, and obviously you could definitely Google that equation and put your info in yourself.
Yeah.
But that said, I think it's a little hard to do without the help of some kind of professional, just because you want to make sure you get like your activity right. You want to make sure the number looks good, because it doesn't take into account how much muscle you have, like how what you're doing throughout the day. It's so like black and white on paper. So this one's kind of a little gray to answer.
And it's funny. I struggle with that sometimes as well. And we use InBody 570 scale to like measure all of our clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that gives them the basal metabolic rate based on the amount of muscle mass they have, and we show them what their basal metabolic rate is, and we try to have the conversation of like, okay, if you're going to create a caloric deficit, just know that this is theoretically the minimum number of calories you should be having to sustain life. So if you stay too far below that for too long, you're going to do a really good job of kind of maybe slowing down your metabolism because your body's afraid.
Definitely.
And being and convincing people of that. It's like, no, that's too many. It's like, oh, okay. Well, so you're right. It is like a tricky conversation to have with people. And I started off with that one because that's the one that I struggle with the most, or understanding that you could have someone who comes in and they're already like, you know, they drew the genetic straw that they're much more muscle than their friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they try to use the same caloric deficit number as someone who does not have, who's not as lean and does not have as much muscle as they do, and they just kind of get frustrated because they're dealing with, they're essentially kind of playing with someone else's hand and thinking that it should work. So I think that's a great point, and like having someone like you that can customize things is definitely great, definitely great.
For sure.
Cool. And if anyone has any questions, send, you know, kind of, we got a list of questions, but we'll try to get to these, and if I can see them pop across the screen, I'll definitely try to ask them, right? Second question, one that came up here, which is the number one question I have. Um, so I'm having so much trouble dealing with cravings. Always ordering, dealing with cravings, always ordering, in any advice? Let's see. So this person asked, they're having trouble with cravings. What's your advice on how they can like schedule and plan things in order to kind of maybe deal with that?
Yeah, you can ask Ava. This is one of my favorite topics.
Mm.
So I think, with cravings, what I find is that usually cravings get to a point where we're constantly having them or they feel like really hard to satisfy because we're not honoring them. So let's say, for example, you have a craving for a cookie and you're like, nah, I shouldn't have a cookie. So you kind of keep not having it, not having it. See, Ava got excited. I told you, we like this one. So you kind of keep not having the cookie, not having the cookie. And every day you're like, oh my God, I'm really craving cookies. So really a lot of like times when the cravings feel insatiable, it's because you haven't satisfied it for so long. So one of the first things that I always recommend is when you do notice you're craving something,
Mm.
honor it, have the
Yeah,
cookie. And I'm not saying stand up and start eating from the box of cookies and have no idea what you ate and feel bad after.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying put a cookie or two on a plate, sit down with it, really mindfully eat it, let yourself eat it without judging yourself. And that can help, to bring that satisfaction so much. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, the other concept that I think is really important is there's this idea of things called buzzers that aren't true cravings that are, let's say you're scrolling through Instagram and you see a cookie, or you are talking to your friend and your friend says, I just ordered the best French fries, and all of a sudden you want those foods. So
Yeah.
those are more buzzers and not true cravings. They're kind of like in the moment and they come from external stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
And when those come up, I always say, try to keep moving on, do something else. Because it was a buzzer and it came on so quickly, it
Mm-hmm.
usually will go away just as quickly. And when
Yeah.
it's a true craving, have the food, hands down, enjoy it. And over time, it really starts to get, easier and easier to manage cravings and they feel less like uncontrollable.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm like taking notes too, by the way. I'm like, buzzer.
I saw.
I'm gonna use it.
I
But yeah,
like that.
same thing. And you used a cookie analogy, but I love cookies, and
Me too.
generally, um, Fridays are like my day to have cookies. And like when City Bakery was open, or like the people at
So
the vending
good.
are like, yep, it's Friday. There he is. Give me my damn cookie. It's Friday. But at the same time, you're right, right? And we had this kind of conversation yesterday too about,
Mhm.
understanding that you don't have to be perfect. But at the same time, if you are inner 3-year-old or 4-year-old, I know because mine is like really good at this. I'll tell my son, don't touch that. And that's almost like saying, all right, well, you're telling me to touch it, right? So it's like, don't have it, don't have it. You're like, I want it, I want it. It's like, okay, well, you got to let your 3-year-old, your inner 3-year-old kind of have that experience a little bit. But at the same time, have some discipline and plan it and expect it. So
Mhm.
I
For
will have a
sure.
cookie, which means that like after we're done here, I'll probably have a cookie. Um, but
Speaking
yeah,
of cookies.
yeah, that's a great one. So yeah, that's a new one. I hope everyone wrote that down. Buzzers,
Yeah.
and you should ask yourself and question yourself as you're going through life and all of its challenges. Am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Am I craving, or is this a buzzer that I just see, truffle fries go across my screen and I really
Right.
want truffle fries, or is it a craving? So that was a good one. Thank you for that.
Of course. I'm glad you
Uh,
like it.
cool, 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 cool. So, here's another one that's like that also gets me, and I'm curious as to your position on this. Um, Tips and tricks to speed up your metabolism. What are the myths? What's
Love
your
that
thought?
question. That's a good one. So, to kind of be like a buzzkill right now, there is almost no trick that will speed up your metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably one of the biggest myths out there. Like, if you see any kind of marketing that says, drink this celery juice, take this supplement, eat this one food, it is not true. If there was a magic thing that sped up metabolism, I would tell everyone to do it. I would stop working. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. However, not all bad news. What I will say is that you can definitely speed up your metabolism with more kind of like hard work and working at it for a while. So if you have ever like chronically dieted or underate, you're going to slow your metabolism because metabolism literally translates to the breakdown of food in the body. So when
Mm-hmm.
we don't have enough food to break down, when we're not eating enough, our metabolism slows. So we've all been there. Almost everyone I work with has been there. I've been there personally where when you go through a phase where you're like, oh, I should keep eating less and less. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
slow your metabolism. The good
Absolutely.
news is that as you eat regularly, as you eat enough food, eat regular meals and snacks, that's enough to speed up your metabolism. So it's not like a sexy answer, but the best way to speed your metabolism or to keep it kind of fast is to eat regularly, eat enough, and just eat don't skip meals.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, to add to that, I think one of the points that I make is, if you want to speed up your metabolism, make sure that you maintain an average amount for your age, sex, and height of lean muscle mass, aka metabolically active tissue. So when people say, I don't want to lift that weight, it might be too heavy, and then I put them on the InBody, and it's like your muscle mass is below average for your age, sex, and height. So if you want to speed up your metabolism, maybe we should get your muscle back to average, which is going to be eating right, which is going to be lifting everything to get some growth in your muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also like to look at it from a standpoint of, do I want to speed up my metabolism, or do I want to slow down my rate of energy storage by making sure that my body is not in protection mode most of the time because I'm stressed. I don't eat consistently. I don't recover well. I don't sleep well. And in some cases, when, I wouldn't have thought this, but I had a client that literally we trained 6 days a week at one point, and, body fat number was not moving. And I'm thinking to myself, something's going on. I did my research, and I'm like, well, I think I'm training her chubby because she is just so stress that her body is looking at the work that we're doing as chronic stress, and the next thing you know, she got some blood work done and her cortisol levels are through the roof. So we backed it down to 3 to 4 days of training a week, and I said you got to go take a Pilates class, and then 2 days you got to sit. 1 or 2 days you really have to sit and do nothing. And within weeks, her body fat percentage started to move down. So it's like there are other things. It's not just about speeding up your metabolism. It's about being mindful of how your body's handling and storing the food that you bring in too, because you could be eating the right number of calories, but just everything from a biochemical standpoint isn't in line for you to handle those calories properly, right?
Yeah. That's such a good point because, I never really comment on the exercise part because I like to stay in my scope. Exercise is not in my scope. But
Yeah.
that's such a good point, and I come across that a lot with clients where they don't understand the benefit of taking a rest day and taking at least one day off, if not more. So I really like the way you put that.
Yeah. We try. I have a whole this whole thing. No, I'm just kidding. It's not on.
Let's go.
Yeah. It's like,
I'm ready.
uh, let's see. Here's another good one. Healthy snack tips. You got a whole cookbook full of them. I'm pretty sure. Always turn to something not so good. So now there's a healthy dose of discipline that has to go into this, but of course this goes in line with you will be consistent with things that taste good. So if you had to give like your top 3, top 4 healthy snack tips, what would those be?
Yeah. So I, as expected, really like easy snacks, things that you can grab quickly. Granted, right now we're all home, but if you were going to work or going to school, things that you could just kind of like throw in your bag and take on the go.
Yeah.
So top few would definitely be fruit with peanut butter or almond butter. Easy, good. My theme with snacks is I like them all to have protein and fiber to really make them filling. So right? So if you've
Yeah.
ever had like an apple or banana alone, it's not going to do much. We need to add some kind of protein too. So fruit with peanut butter, almond butter is a big one. Like whole grain crackers or veggies with hummus, that's another favorite. I love lately roasted chickpeas, like super easy. You can get them ready to go, have protein and fiber. Uh,
You,
well,
you're gonna see Ava's hand raised again.
I know.
Uh,
I thought of that.
she got me turned on to those. I'm like, if you give me some barbecue flavored ones, I'm
Do
pretty
they
sure
have those?
I don't know. Ava, look for those for me. I'll eat them. Uh,
Right. I know. So many people were like, Ava got me so into these chickpeas.
yeah, I was like, what is this? I was like,
They're so good. They're
this is
so
good.
good.
Give me the rest of them.
And they're
So,
easy.
yeah,
Yeah, so those are all top ones. And even like popcorn is a whole grain. So something like popcorn with like a hard-boiled egg or string cheese. I mean, super easy things that, again, like exactly like you said, are enjoyable and taste
so
good and things you'll like to eat.
yeah, so I think one of the things that just
Oh,
struck me.
Kelvin, we have barbecue flavored. Do you see the
Yeah,
comments?
I will look for those. Uh,
Big news.
so one of the things that just struck me is like you went straight to fruit with a protein or a fat, and I like to say that so that it doesn't, so it doesn't hit the blood sugar level too hard, right? And veggies and hummus. And you're like,
Mhm.
keep it simple. So often we overthink things, right? And it's like, oh, well, I can't figure out the snack to have. And it's like, how many fruit carts did you walk by? How many groceries did you walk by on your way to the gym and on your way home, right? And it's like, it's amazing how people can just kind of get stuck in the weeds thinking, oh, well, I got to have something that's like not normal. It's like, it's simple.
Hmm.
Get some Justin's peanut butter and an apple, and boom, pow, and you're done, right? So, yeah, I mean, keep it simple, and you gave some really great ideas.
Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Um, let's see. Okay, sticking with ideas, 'cause that's another one.
Sure.
Um, actually, I'll preface this with this question. What do you think is which meal do you think is the most important meal of the day?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all equally important, but
Yeah.
if I have to choose one, I'm gonna go with breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. And there's kind of like a lot of different opinions on this, but this is my own personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast literally is break the fast. It is the first time we're eating in the morning. I love when we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that meal is so important. It signals to your body that you're awake, that you've started to eat, that your metabolism should start running and breaking down food. Kelvin, you just went black. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I don't know
Okay.
how I get myself out of here. Somebody help. Uh-oh.
I don't know how that happened.
Let's see. Trying to get.
There we
There
go.
I am. I
Wait,
went black because it did something. I don't know. Can you hear me and see me okay?
all good.
Okay, good.
All good. Yeah, so I mean, breakfast is so important. And again, all three meals are important, but I think skipping breakfast is probably one of the most common things that I see. And if I could change anything, it's so important because also, too, when you don't eat breakfast, and most of my clients find this, by lunch and dinner, they're starving and they find that they're kind of catching up all day and overeating at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you have breakfast, you're managing your hunger levels much better throughout the day. And even though you're adding a meal, you end up eating less overall and just eating more consistently.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So now I'm gonna add to that and love that answer because we're getting a couple answers here. Steph, I see you. Abe, I see your question. There was one more question about headaches there. I saw
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna try to remember that. So now on the go because I mean obviously with COVID and stay at home, we've all been forced to sit our asses down and actually make a meal,
Hmm.
eat it at home, right? But what are your best, what's your thoughts about, quick lunch ideas, um, and quick on the go breakfast ideas that that folks can kind of take with them? We talked about snacks, but what about more substantive meals, especially when it's breakfast?
Sure. I mean, you'll see I'm pretty much like a broken record. Like, theme
Mm-hmm.
is easy. So even now, I am so about like easy on the go breakfast. Breakfast should not be something you have to cook for 30 minutes in the morning. Nobody wants to do that. If you do want to do that, like, power to you. That's wonderful. But if you don't, we'll make it easy. So really easy breakfast. Things like toast or an English muffin with almond butter, peanut butter, and banana.
Mm-hmm.
Greek yogurt with a high fiber cereal and berries.
Mm-hmm.
Oatmeal with some kind of protein added, whether it's a nut butter or collagen or fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Eggs any way you would like them with toast and avocado. I mean, really, really simple things. But
Mm-hmm.
again, we're looking at that protein and fiber to make it filling.
Correct.
As far as lunch, again, like easy things. I think sandwiches are so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Put some veggies in it or put some carrots on the side, real simple. Pasta can be a great lunch, like a whole wheat pasta or a bean, like chickpea based pasta. Both are high in fiber, both have a decent amount of protein. Add in some frozen veggies to make it easy, some tomato sauce so it's not super boring. You've got an easy lunch.
Nice. Awesome. And I think, again, the theme of keep it simple and, to add to that, played a lot of sports growing up. And one of my baseball coaches used to always say, proper planning prevents piss poor performance, right? So
I like that.
the people, when they're like, I don't have time to meal prep. And I'm like, well, just like even now, I still wake up at 5 in the morning just to get work done. Sometimes I have clients at 6, even though I'm working from home. Um, I don't want to wake the whole house up making breakfast. So I simply reached out to RX Bar, who has the RX oatmeals, which, if you scan it in the chronometer, you look at it, you're like, this actually isn't that bad. And this
Mm-hmm.
the oatmeal made boiled some eggs 2 days ago, right? Had them in the fridge, took the boiled eggs out, chopped up some blueberries on top of the oatmeal that I basically made with hot water that I was using to make my coffee anyway. And 5 minutes later, not even, breakfast is done. All right. So
Perfect.
when people say I don't have time to meal prep, I get it. There are other simple ways that you can meal prep. A lot of ways that you can buy things that are already prepped for you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But planning, and then like you said, keeping it simple and making it quick and easy. That way that
Definitely.
the roadblocks are kind of removed, right? So that's awesome. There's a question about intermittent fasting, right? I mean, there's all these philosophies on, like, should I intermittent fast 12 hours, 16 hours? And I jokingly say, and I think Jordan Sayat had kind of put on his Instagram that where he was talking about what you need is patience, right? Or you can have a strategy. There's diets, a lot of them work. But what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
So I think I may like rattle some feathers with this one. um,
Battle
but
'em.
but hear me out. Hear me out.
Mhm,
I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I'll tell you why.
mhm,
Just like when we were talking about metabolism, like we have to be eating constantly, not constantly, but enough consistently for our metabolism to run. So skipping meals in the long run is going to have an effect on that. Not to mention when you skip meals, at some point you're starving and it will lead to overeating. That said, I know a lot of people, they do it, they get used to it. My problem is that most of the long-term research on intermittent fasting has been done on mice. Most of like the positive results are all anecdotal. So people who've done it and say they've had wonderful results. And
mhm.
I'll never discredit anyone's personal experience. If you've done it and you liked it and you found that it was really great for you, then keep doing it. But I personally wouldn't recommend it. The only time I might is if you're someone who wants to have maybe your fasting window be from like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because you tend to kind of graze at night and that helps you.
Mhm.
Okay. But yeah, other than that, I'm not the biggest proponent of it.
Yeah. And look, I'm along the same path for a couple reasons, right? One of them being, um, and with a lot of like diets, keto and a lot of different diet strategies, I like to back it up and say, hey, do you eat breakfast? Do you eat lunch? Do you eat dinner? Do you look
Mm-hmm.
at your portion sizes? If you go out, I mean, I used to do this a lot where I would take a client out to lunch and we go to, Sweet Greens, and I'd let them order first. And I do this intentionally. I let them order first, and then I order the same thing, maybe get like a little extra protein. And we sit down and we talk and we eat. And they look over and they're like, "You're not going to finish your salad." I go, "I'm full." And they're like, "Really?" I'm really full. But it's like they gave us the same portion size, right? So it's like, so if I'm full, who might have overate, who might have underate, who ate too fast, who took their time and listened to their body and realized when they were full. So it's like all these things that you can do that are easy wins. Like, yeah, eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, look at your portion sizes, slow down and enjoy what you're eating so that your
Mm-hmm.
body's fighting mechanisms actually have time to kick in. Um, those things first before we start saying keto or intermittent fasting. Also, understanding that compliance with intermittent fasting is extremely difficult, and
Mm-hmm.
there's compliance with a lot of things, right? And for most people, especially clients first starting out, if they're an advanced client, I might say, hey, here's some information on intermittent fasting. I'm not an expert on it. I'll point you to an expert. You can try it. But I want to give my clients one less thing to fail at,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. Because I want they've come to us because they're not happy with something. They're not happy with how something has gone, right? Or they feel like they failed on their own. So I definitely don't want to put a strategy out there that's going to put them at a higher risk of experiencing failure again. So hit the simple stuff first, Yeah, we're on the same page.
I like that. Yeah.
That one.
I might not go to Sweet Green with you for lunch ever, but we're on the same
Like
page.
he's judging what I'm eating. No, you know, anyone that knows me will tell you they're like, he is the slowest eater on the planet.
Really?
Unless I'm like haven't eaten all day. Kirsten, I see your question about BSF coaches posting a picture of the fridge. I'll work on that. I'm sharing my fridge with a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a question here that was, is there food to get rid of headaches,
Huh.
or what to eat or drink if you have a headache? That's a great one. Natural
Yeah.
aspirin. It's like, why do you have a headache? A lot of things can cause a headache. But I mean, this is good
Yeah.
medical perspective. And you're someone, I mean, whenever anyone comes to me with a medical based question that has to do with nutrition, I go, that is not tip to touch. See her over there with all the letters behind her name. She's going to answer that question.
I like that. We stay in our scopes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the hard thing for me is like a lot of times we look for like what food can I eat to prevent this or help this,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of things online will tell you that food can. And I love nutrition. I think good nutrition is so important, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll also be the first to tell you that it's not magic. Like food isn't going to cure everything. So I think you brought up a good point. Like, why do you have the headache? A lot of times it could be dehydration. You haven't drank enough water, or
Mm-hmm.
you ate too much salt. That either of those maybe gave you a headache. So, as far as like what foods to eat to get rid of them, that one's kind of hard to say. But I guess on the same token, I would say make sure you're drinking enough fluids. Fluids kind of like always help with anything. A lot of water. And if it's helpful, kind of cut down the sodium or the salt intake because that can contribute. And having maybe just like fresh fruits and vegetables and really hydrating foods. Fruits and veggies are some of the most hydrating foods ever. Many fruits and veggies are like 90% or more made of water. Those could be really helpful.
Yeah. Noted. Awesome. And Leafy, I see you. I'm going to do my due diligence on you, and we'll have a conversation. Right? We'll do some R&D with that with regards to I'm an engineer by trade, and I'm one of those sciencey people that are like, let me see the data. So we'll
Mhm.
Leafy Organics. I see you. We'll talk about that for sure. Here's a good one. What's your take on the amount of carbs daily?
Amount of carbs. That is a good one for sure. So obviously, just like calories, different for everyone. But I will for sure start by saying we all need carbs. Often, carbs are, as you probably know, like our main source of fuel in exercise. They're converted to glycogen, and that's what we use in exercise. At a minimum, everyone needs 130 grams a day of carbohydrates. This
Mm-hmm.
is to support your brain function alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a fact that's like so overlooked by all these low carb diets all the time. But 130 really isn't even that high. You probably see with like your clients that if you're exercising a lot, you need much more than that.
Yeah.
So different for everyone, but I'd recommend having a carb at every meal,
Mm-hmm.
130 at a minimum, if not much more.
So now, what's your take on, to kind of add to that? What's your take on the whole thought of like body types and somatoforms, or like ectomorphic versus endomorphic versus the tall, lanky marathoner. We have a coach at Body Space who is he, brilliant guy. He tries everything under the sun to put on weight, but he tries so hard he will eat three Five Guys hamburgers in a sitting and can't put on weight. But yet you have other people that will smell a Five Guys hamburger and it's like, oh. So what's your thought about how certain body types metabolize different um, macronutrients differently, and like should if you have a mesomorph that should be more balanced, or an ectomorph that could be a little bit more towards the carb heavy side, or an endomorph that should be a little bit more to the protein and fat side. I mean, that's just like from my learning. But what's your thought on that from a medical perspective?
Yeah, I mean, so those terms, ectomorph and endomorph, I have not heard since grad school. I had to be like, wait a minute, what is that? So I might skip that part. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess it's no matter what, because I think probably most of the clients I see wouldn't, I don't know if they would know that about themselves anyway. I'm always going to look at the person individually. If you are someone that feels like no matter what you do, you cannot gain weight or you have to eat a lot to keep weight on, then yeah, we're going to give you more carbs. Maybe you do need more. Maybe you need more healthy fats and protein, which I see in the comments too. And you could be someone who is a little more, I hesitate to say sensitive because I know the topic of like a carb or gluten intolerance is so overhyped. But if you are someone who maybe does better with a little less carbs, that's okay too. I think these are the things that we figure out when you work with the dietitian one on one. And even in that case, I'm never gonna go below 130 grams. Like I can't even think of one time that I would.
Mm-hmm. So now we have some good questions popping up on the screen, which I think it'd be a really good time to educate people a little bit because I know a good amount about this. I actually worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and one of the drugs that I worked on was a diabetes and obesity drug called Januvia. So I have a understanding of, like blood sugar, insulin, what goes on. Understanding that, yeah, when your blood sugar rises, insulin rises, right? So, and then insulin's, from what I understand, your body's hormonal mechanism to kind of store energy. Understanding that there are times when you want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your body does want to store energy. So because someone asked a question about, carbs release insulin, insulin makes you store fat. So let's make sure we're clear on kind of like what happens with insulin and from a storage perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, right? If you eat too much protein, we know that if it realizes it has too much protein, it's going to take that protein and cleave that amine group and make it look like something that's a carbohydrate, and it's going to store it
Mm-hmm.
in the form of something that can be stored, which is not necessarily what we want, right? So let's maybe take a second to educate on like carbs, insulin, and then why it's, especially when you talk about having like fat and protein along with the fruit,
Mm-hmm.
kind of your thoughts behind that, and like why we should not necessarily always be afraid of insulin, I guess.
Yeah, really good point. So just like you said, I mean, insulin is a hormone that's released when we eat. It's not a bad thing by any means. I think sometimes it maybe gets that connotation because of diabetes, which we people kind of know is related to insulin. But what you have to remember is that diabetes is when you've developed an insulin resistance. So your body is not properly doing what it needs to do with the insulin. So insulin really it's not a bad thing. We want it to be released when we eat. To
Mm-hmm.
Kelvin's point, exactly. That's why I really like having a carb with some kind of protein and healthy fat. So first of all, we want fiber, and fiber you're getting from whole grain carbs, from fruit, from veggies. Fiber counteracts blood sugar in the body. So if you were to eat something just like straight sugar,
Mm-hmm.
your blood sugar might kind of like spike and then drop, which is why maybe you get a lot of energy and then you crash. Whereas when you have fiber with that sugar, it decreases that spikes. Maybe your energy is kind of a much more stable,
Yeah.
and you don't feel as tired. You don't have that crash. Same
Yeah.
with the protein and healthy fat. They're all helping keeping you full. They're all providing satiety, and they're all preventing you from having like a big spike in your blood sugar and your energy to really keep everything stable. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Yes.
You're like, I get
Yeah,
it.
I get it. I just hope um I just hope there's a lot of people on. I hope that question kind of came across, and then kind of a backup question to that was like, I heard I need protein with every meal. Is that true? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm actually really curious your thoughts on this too. But I mean, I do like encourage protein at every meal. Again, protein and fiber at your meals, at your snacks is what's keeping you full. That said, it doesn't always, in my opinion, need to be like a really straight source of protein, like a chicken, fish, turkey type thing. I think, it's definitely possible to get creative. Plant-based protein sources are always an option. Things like beans, quinoa, lentils, tofu. And then even you have to remember, protein is also going to come from things like cheese, hummus, most grains. Most foods aren't just one food group. They have amounts of other food groups too. So even some veggies have some protein. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important for sure, but I also wouldn't drive yourself crazy about it because chances are like if you're making a point to add it at 1 or 2 meals a day, you're probably getting enough.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, and one of the things I like to kind of drive home too from my understanding and my learning is that um, protein has a higher thermic value,
Mm.
meaning your body has to work a little bit harder to process protein. Thermic value meaning it costs you X calories to burn, you know, uh, or to process protein uh, more so than most carbohydrates and fats. So thermic value is one thing, and making sure that you get enough protein because what I've found in just practice, and I'm not sure if you found this as well, and especially dealing with actually males too. In general, people have a hard time getting enough protein, and they think that they are getting enough, and it's like, well, actually, you kind of shorten yourself. Um, so yeah, try to. I like to say protein at every meal. But like you said, if you get 2 or 3 meals in with protein, great. If one's like a salad that doesn't have as much protein in it, that's one thing too. But yeah, try not to short yourself, especially with the New York City workout world, and especially now with people working out at home online 2 days, 2 times a day, 5 days a week, and kind of tearing the muscle down, understanding the role that protein plays in rebuilding muscle and making sure that you stay kind of not even injury free, but like reducing your risk of like being over fatigued and having some
Mhm.
uh, muscle issue, a muscle based issue. Hello from Argentina. Someone's listening from Argentina. Thank you. Um, cool. I
And
see.
did you miss our other special guest? We have Ava's mom on here too.
Oh, hey, Ava's my boy. No, no. Where's Ava's dad? Ava's dad is my boy. That's my heart.
I know.
She's daddy.
We
I'm just
need
kidding.
Bennett
That's
Fagan
Grace's
on
my
here.
baby. Yeah, he always comes to the gym to work out. Daily amount of protein. There's a couple ways to deal with that. I think that definitely depends on your body type, your starting point, your activity level. So that's one of those it depends answers. There's a couple good equations online, and you might have some good references that you can kind of maybe put in your stories. Everyone, make sure you follow Sammy too, Veggies and Chocolate. If you want to put like here's a good reference. I would say get it customized, but like here's a good reference. That's worth. Um, Here's another one. Reverse dieting. That's pretty detailed. We'll talk about reverse dieting. That's another one of those like strategies where it's like, hey, let's handle the simple stuff first before we go into like the reverse dieting strategies. If you're getting ready for a competition, we'll think about it, right? But are preservatives bad, and artificial colors bad? Yeah, so this is like I feel like this is one of those like interesting questions of like, what do
Yeah,
you think? What's your take on artificial flavors, colors, things of that nature?
I love this question.
Hmm.
So I think that there are a lot of preservatives in food that get a lot of flack because we don't know what they are. They're big sounding words. We don't know what they are. And there was like a meme that was circulating a while ago. I'm sure most people have seen it. That was like, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it unless it's quinoa. And that
Hmm.
is so wrong. So
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. See, someone just said it. I love that. I have a huge blog post on a lot of ingredients in foods because I know we don't know what they are and it seems kind of scary. But in actuality, a lot of these preservatives are a lot of times they're vitamins. So like big ones are tocopherol, which is vitamin E.
Mm-hmm.
Cholecalciferol is vitamin D.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to think of others. Citric acid is an acid that contains vitamin C. So really, they're vitamins that are helping preserve food. And unless you want to be going to the store every 2 days because your
Yes.
food went bad, they're
Yes.
actually really helpful. And then on the
Yes.
other hand, there are often things like xanthan gum or I'm blanking on others, but just things that kind of help the texture.
Mm-hmm.
Totally safe, nothing to worry about. They're in small quantities. They're not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial flavors and colors are a little trickier. It's kind of like an unregulated term and it can mean a lot of things.
Mm.
My personal view, again, is like it's probably not in a big amount unless you're eating candy all day, every day. I'm not super concerned about it. If you have like
Mm-hmm.
a few foods, a few meals that tend to have some like artificial flavoring in them,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, in the scheme of an overall healthy diet, no big deal.
Got it. That's awesome answer.
Thank
And
you.
funny story. I used to make um, when I worked at when I worked for Merck Pharmaceuticals, one of our factories in Pennsylvania. We made xanthan gum. So I'm
Oh,
like,
no way.
I know I'm like, it's as harmless as it gets.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that yeah, I like to follow the Michael Pollan sort of eat food mostly green, not too much. Um, sort of philosophy. If I knew what it was if I can tell what it was after I cooked it, that's pretty cool too. Um, Try not to have things from a bag, but then also try to be realistic and understand that people are gonna go through life and won't be able to have celery and apples in every uh, situation, right? There
Mhm.
might be. I'll be honest. I have RX bars and different bars that on a normal day in the gym we might be 6 hours straight of training clients where I need to pull out what I like to call pocket lunch and just like whip out a bar of some sort. And so I try to make sure that those bars are fairly wholesome, but and maybe have an apple along with it. Understand that like an apple won't just kind of do it, but yeah, I think sometimes people um, it would be good to kind of do the homework, the information about every one of those things are there, and just know that there's a lot of things that won't get put in the food if the
Mhm.
FDA and the regulating bodies understand that supplements is that's like a whole different feel, and I
Yeah.
really don't get into supplements much outside of like branched chain amino acids and like whey protein. Everything else, I'm like, there's just too much of the wild wild west. But for the most part, when it comes to food, you can kind of trust um, a lot of what's going in there, and just do your homework. If you go to eat a bag of Doritos and you're looking at the stuff that's on the back of it, you shouldn't you shouldn't really be eating a bag of Doritos to begin with, or like consistently eating a bag of Doritos. You know what I mean? So yeah, actually, this is a great question. So the same person says because she's eating a little bit more food that's frozen, right? During quarantine, I guess you can't get out to the markets to get, and in New York City, it's funny, the green markets are still open. Uh,
Mhm.
so they're eating a little bit more frozen food. Would you ever recommend, buying fresh and freezing on your own so that you can have a little bit more say so over what's kind of goes into your quote frozen food, or what's your thought on that? Whole versus frozen sort of deal.
I'm actually a big fan of frozen food. I think something that most people don't know is that frozen vegetables are most of the time just as nutritious as fresh. They are kind of like picked and harvested and packaged at their peak. So if you have, something like, or fruit too, if you have something like blueberries that are in season in the summer, if you try to get blueberries in the winter, they're going to be really expensive. They're going to taste kind of funky. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
frozen blueberries are, picked in the summer when they're at their peak. So when you buy them frozen, they retain their nutritional value, they retain their taste, they're cheaper, they last longer. Same with veggies. So I'm a big fan of frozen fruits and veggies. They're easy, they're cheap, they last long. In terms of like other frozen foods, I mean, especially now, I think right now is not the time to be hard on yourself with your diet and go crazy. You have to do what you can. Like, this is such a hard time. It's hard to get groceries. We are all at home all day long. Like, if frozen food is making your life easier, it is totally fine. It's one, possible to do it in a healthy way, and two, not worth beating yourself up over at all.
Absolutely. Like amazing point. It's like
Thank
here's
you.
it. Like it's like if we were in the military, we were out in the field, and the next thing you know, we whip out an MRE, and it's like, oh, I have to eat one of these meals ready to eat. It's like, no, you're in the middle of battle. You should not
Yeah.
beat yourself up for not being able to have an omelet for breakfast. It's like,
Mhm.
I mean, so we're not to that extreme, but we should also look at it from the standpoint of, yeah, we're in a unique situation that,
Mhm.
just like you said, don't beat yourself up. Do the best that you can, and know that that's good enough, right?
Yeah.
Um, Great question. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. We have a couple more questions here. Um, let's see. Here's a good one. I mean, I'll kind of end it on this one with um, regards to like sweeteners. Someone says, I like lemonade. I love Kool-Aid. I used to drink a lot of Kool-Aid as a kid.
Kool-Aid.
I don't anymore.
That's a throwback.
I know, right? It's like it's like the picture's gonna come like through the wall
Yes.
right now. I just aged myself.
No, I'm there
What's
with
your
you.
what's your Sean? I know you thought that was funny. Um, what's your thought on the whole sweetener game? The stevia versus brown sugar versus coconut sugar versus no sugar at all. If someone needs to have in their coffee, or as this young lady says, in their lemonade,
Mhm.
um, what's your thought on the whole sweetener game?
So, such a big question. So, I'll definitely like do my best to kind of summarize it. But any sugar, so regular sugar, brown sugar, coconut sugar, honey, maple syrup, they're all sugar. The body sees them all the same. They are digested the same. Love that you agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like something that drives me nuts is when coconut sugar is kind of like touted as healthier. They're all
Mm-hmm.
sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial sweeteners, it depends. I mean, my personal opinion is I've looked at a ton of the research on them, and I think depending on the one that you choose, in small quantities can be okay. So, excuse me. If I
Mm-hmm.
have a client that loves Diet Coke and, can't give up their Diet Coke once a week or a few times a week, I'm okay with that. Diet Coke has sucralose, which is Splenda, and from what I've seen, the evidence on Splenda is the least harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said your body doesn't recognize. Yeah, so that's why there are artificial sweeteners. That's why they have no calories, because they're not absorbed by the body. Harm wise, my personal opinion is if you have it in small amounts, it doesn't do anything. On the other hand, like the only sweetener that I've seen like really negative research with is aspartame, which is like equal the blue packet. So I kind of leave it to personal preference. If you're someone that's like, I don't want to do it, it's artificial, no, don't do it. That's totally fine. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're someone that needs like a Splenda in your coffee, or you want like Diet Coke occasionally, I'm of the mindset based off the research I've seen that like it's not going to harm you.
Yeah. And you have some people that are over tasters, some that are under tasters, and yeah, I like coconut sugar because I feel like it's not over. It, it,
Not like
it's
too
more
sweet.
it's more subtle, right?
Mhm.
And I can put a little bit in there. It's subtle, and I feel like I don't need to put much in there, right?
Yeah.
But the same thing. It's like it's still sugar. Um, so cool. That was a great question. Yeah, especially here in um, the point about it being kind of like almost like a pass through, like your body doesn't recognize it as a but good point too. So cool. So anything you want to like leave us with? If you had like your top tip, when's the chocolate book coming? Anything you want to like leave? Anything you want to leave?
Yeah. I mean, someone just wrote maybe everything in moderation, and like I think that kind of sums it up perfectly. Like my biggest thing, and it's what I was telling you the other day on the phone, is like we have to eat every single day, multiple times a day. Don't make it harder for yourself. Don't stress yourself out. Let's make it as easy as possible. Like in general, focus on nutrient dense foods, veggies, fruit, proteins, whole grains. But when you don't eat those, it's okay. When you need something else, it's okay. When you end up eating the bag of Doritos or whatever it is, it's okay. So don't beat yourself up. Make it easy. Make it as non-stressful as possible, and
Yeah.
make it realistic. And back to like that first question, don't forget the cookies and the French fries occasionally too.
I'm literally gonna have a cookie for like
I
dinner.
had to remind you.
Yeah, no, you did. Awesome, cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And if everyone, make sure you follow her, Veggies and Chocolate. Um, you probably all already follow her because you got a lot of followers. Congratulations. You do your thing.
Claim to fame.
And great, happy Friday. Uh, uh, enjoy the weekend, and we look forward to seeing you guys all again here next Friday. So thank you again, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye. And thanks everyone for the comments.